Hey everybody, welcome back to Life Under Deborah's Palm, and as promised, we're going to start taking a look at the symbols used in dream interpretation, and I will share some of my own stuff and how I figured out what was going on. So you had a dream, you wrote it down, and now you don't have any stinking idea what the dream means. Yeah, welcome to the club. It happens. And just a quick refresher, and I know I've mentioned this in my other ones, but very often dreams are very symbolic. And those symbols are what really needs to be understood in order to understand what your dream is saying and what God is speaking to you through your dream. So let's look at it. The symbols are anything. We're going to talk about numbers today, but it could be numbers and colors and animals and people and places and why am I looking at old things and how come my dead grandmother's in this dream, and yeah. But we're going to start today with numbers. But first I thought I would just tell you quickly a couple things about interpreting and things to be careful of. You can get online and a lot of people will have dream interpretation symbols. Be very careful. Very often they are not coming from a Christian source, and they just will not have what you're looking for, and you could get led in the wrong direction with that. Likewise, often the Christian dream dictionaries come at the end of books that you buy. And if you want to get a good book on that, you should do that. Those dream dictionaries that are at the end of Christian books on dream interpreting, they won't always apply to your situation, and that's true of anything. And part of the symbolism that will work in your dreams will come from your own experiences. So I worked in landscaping and perennial gardening for like 20 something years, and my husband is a math science guy, and he's worked in the science field for 25 or more years now. And God will speak with things that you understand. God's not going to tell me about some physics formula because I don't understand physics formulas, but he'll speak to my husband that way. Likewise, plant materials, not his thing. He's probably not going to hear much, although we have had dreams where we've said, hey, I had this dream, and we found out that, like one time he had a dream and it had something to do with this tree that was in his parents' front yard, and I said, well, that tree is a silver maple, and silver has a lot of symbolism attached to it. And the flip side is I've had like weird dreams with waves, and he's like, oh, they're oscillating and it's a cycle and it's whatever. And you know what? It was very helpful. We interpreted parts of things that were not understood for each other. The symbolism in the dream dictionaries that are found in Christian books originate in the Bible. Things like numbers, if you've ever read, you'll find out there's repeating numbers. I remember the number 40 was one of the ones I caught because it rained 40 days and 40 nights. The Israelites wandered the desert for 40 years. Moses was up on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. And so they will take those things and get an interpretation from that. And so 40 is usually like a trial or a testing or a probationary period. Those are the things that they use to interpret and get a dream dictionary. Now, I would honestly say, truthfully, you're going to get your own dream dictionary, and some symbols will switch as you go along and you understand different things. Write it down. When you write your dreams down, break it up into small pieces and just say, what are these things, and why is this red, and why am I getting this number, and why am I getting my dead grandmother? You'll need to know those things, and God will explain it, but it'll take you some time. On to numbers. And if you don't know this, the Hebrew alphabet it originated as a lot of old alphabets did with pictures, but the Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters in it. Each one of those letters also has a picture, a symbolic picture assigned to it, and a number assigned to it. And the first 9 numbers the first 9 letters have the numbers 1 through 9. The next 9, from 10 to 18, go in the tens. So they'll go 10, 20, 30, 40, up to 90. And the last 4 go in hundreds, 100, 200, 300, 400. Okay, that's how they do it. And that's called gematria. Now, I'm going to show you how it works in the context of the year, like the literal number of the year. And we're not going to use the Gregorian number. Hebraically, this is the year 5783. It is currently the winter of 2023. But I'm going to back up and make this a little easier. I'm going to use the year 5780. Now, you have to understand this. The civil new year, I guess, like our equivalent of January 1st, is the fall. It's Rosh Hashanah. It literally means head of the year. And that is when, the next year starts. So it was 2019, and it would go around till the fall of 2020, and that was 5780. That's the year we're going to talk about. 5780, 2019 to 2020. We're going to ignore the 57 part just to make things quick and easy. And we're going to look at the year 80. Now, 80 falls in that range of numbers that are, the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And 80 is the letter Pei. Pei is associated with the mouth. That is the symbol for Pei. And the mouth could mean it doesn't just literally mean the mouth. It can mean what comes out of your mouth. It can mean to blow on things. It could mean to blow and scatter like a wind. And I'll look at it also from this perspective. In Genesis, God put the breath of life in Adam. He blew into him. Likewise, in the New Testament, Jesus said to his disciples, he blew on them and said, receive the Spirit. So there's a breath of life attached to that. Now let's go back and take a look at 5780 and 2019 to 2020 and talk about breath, because what happened? The pandemic showed up and people were left battling for the breath of life. Things can always be good or bad. They can be a warfare thing. They can be a good thing. I mean, that was really a war or a battle for people's lives. It started in that decade. And so we are currently in 5783. The 80 doesn't go away. It's going to be a whole decade of having to do with mouth and breath and wind and things like that. I'm not going to get into what 5783 means because it's just way too long, but if you're interested in looking that stuff up, I encourage you, go look it up. You can find it often from both a Christian perspective and a Jewish perspective of what that means, and they can be very close because, Christianity comes from the Hebrews. So that brings us to numerology. So we have gematria and we have numerology. And I'm going to say this, whatever God creates, there's always a counterfeit. There's always a fake. And numerology is the fake. Numerology is kind of a mishmash, but it's believed that in the 6th century BC, Pythagorean, like Pythagorean's theorem, the number mathematician guy, he kind of got into it and started to create a numerology. And you can read about it. They will tell you it comes straight out of the gematria of the Hebrew alphabet. But they started to make their own things and connect it to energy and a bunch of stuff. That is considered occultic and witchcraft, and that is different than what I'm telling you about what God has said these numbers and these symbols are. Okay, I just want to make that kind of clear because I know somewhere someone will comment about being a numerologist, and that's not true. So I'm going to give you some examples now of what I have seen. And my weakest dream symbol is always numbers and times and dates. And I know that it's gotten better as time's gone on, but it was always the thing I could never figure out. A dream I just had probably maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago was myself and another person, and we were playing guitar. And if you don't know anything about guitar, I'll kind of give it to you quick. I was playing a chord that was in the 5th fret. So there's little marks on the board, and it was the 5th one down, and I was playing a chord that started in the 5th fret. I looked over, and the other person was playing a chord, what's called a root 5. She was playing it in a different fret. She was playing it in the 3rd fret. So I was playing an A, she was playing a C. We had 3s and 6s and all these numbers going on. But the thing that I took from that dream was the fact that 5 was in there, and it was in there more than once in this section of the dream. It was a really long dream. But in that section, I'm like, it's the 5 that I really need to see. 5 has a lot of different meanings, but I kind of just knew that what I was supposed to get out of it was God was releasing a grace onto this for what we needed to do in a worship situation, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Not only did that dream have the numbers from the strings, there were 2 other numbers in it. I looked up and there was a clock, and at first the clock said 7:37, and then a bunch of things went on, and then the clock said 8 o'clock. And I was like, 7:37. So I looked up, and this is usually what I do. I looked up, is there a scripture that's 73:7 you're probably not going to find, but you might find a chapter 7:37, and I looked and I couldn't find anything that matched. And I just kind of know. It's kind of weird. Sometimes you just know, and there was nothing. And I was like, I'm not getting the 7:37. And all of a sudden I went, wait a minute. It's an airplane getting ready to take off. A 737 is made, I think, by McDonnell Douglas. Maybe it's Boeing, I don't know, but it is a 737, and that was right. And 8 o'clock, 8 is a number of new beginning, and we knew there was going to be a change in this worship. There was a lot of changes in this worship session, and definitely that was it. In fact, after we did the worship, I had vision of an airplane that had just taken off, and it was a 737. It had just gotten, like, the wheels I don't think were even in. So that was how those numbers work. Now, likewise, I had a dream a couple years ago. I had a couple dreams, and they were within a few days. And in both dreams, again, I saw a clock with the time on it, and I have to look it up. But the first dream, I saw 11:06, and the second dream, I saw 10:36. Now, sometimes I will go and look numbers up in the concordance. Remember that thing that numbers, like, they take all the words of the Bible and they give them a number, and then the number has a definition. But it wasn't any of that. So I started hunting through the Bible, and I knew it when I saw it. It just hit me, and I was like, that's what it means. So I'm going to look at the first one. The first one was 11:06, and you will see there's a bit of a similarity in both of these scriptures. Both of them came out of Hebrews. So Hebrews 11:06, and without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. And the part in that I was supposed to get, and I actually have it underlined in my journal, he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Okay, now the one I got a couple nights later was Hebrews 10:36, and this says, you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. That's what God was speaking in that time, to persevere, and then you get what you're looking for, whether it's healing, or you have financial issues, or you're trying to understand God's will and which way you should go. And that's how that worked in that situation. Numbers can mean a lot of things, but I hope some of these examples at least helps you kind of start moving in that direction. If you get a number, look it up and see how many times it occurs in the Bible, or where. 47s, 12s, 3s, 10s even. There's a lot of numbers that are very reoccurrent, and that might start to get you on the path that you need to go. Then again, it could be something really odd. You just never know. The fifth string on a guitar, it's grace. You know, it's hard to say sometimes, but it does take some time, and it's really something that, as I said before, I encourage you to just break it down and begin to pray over it and see what God tells you about those things. So until the next time, be blessed.